I never imagined I'd be standing in a marble conference room, surrounded by billion-dollar investors, with a gold pen in my hand and an $800 million contract sitting in front of me. My heart wasn't racing. My hands weren't shaking. I wasn't nervous. I was calm, peaceful, almost proud. Behind me, the very people who once treated me like I was worth nothing, my husband, his mother, his sister, stood frozen, pale, desperate. They weren't used to watching me make decisions. They were used to watching me clean. "Elena, please, don't do this," my husband whispered. His mother stepped forward, her voice trembling. "You can't just sell the Hawthorne estate. This home has been in our family for generations." I didn't look at them. Not yet. Instead, I slowly flipped to the final page of the contract and pressed the pen down, the ink flowing smoothly onto the paper, almost like it wanted this to happen. The room fell silent. Only then did I turn to them and say the words they never expected to hear from me. "You should have thought about the family legacy before you started treating me like your maid." I smiled softly. "Today, I'm taking back everything you took from me." I wasn't always this woman, the one capable of signing away an entire empire without blinking. There was a time I would have apologized just for standing in the wrong place, or breathing too loudly, or accidentally getting in the way of their perfect routines. My name is Elena Thompson, and when I married Michael, I genuinely believed I was marrying into a family that cared. He was charming, kind, attentive, at least in the beginning. Michael was the heir to the Hawthorne property, an estate so large that the first time I saw it, I felt like I'd stepped into a movie. More than 50 acres of oceanfront land, a mansion with ceilings so high my voice echoed, gardens that required 3 full-time landscapers, and artwork worth more than the yearly income of entire neighborhoods. It was overwhelming, yes, but beautiful. And for a moment, I thought I could belong there. But the Hawthorns didn't marry me. They absorbed me, like a tool, like a convenience, like an unpaid worker they didn't remember hiring. The first week I moved in, Michael's mother handed me a feather duster and said, "The maids come twice a week, dear. We can't expect them to handle everything." I laughed lightly, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. That was the beginning. A small moment that felt harmless at the time, but now, looking back, I can see exactly where everything started to crumble. At first, I convinced myself it was just an adjustment period. New home, new family, new expectations. Maybe I just needed time. But time didn't make anything better. It only made their true nature clearer. It started with little requests. "Elena, can you help set the table?" "Elena, the dishwasher isn't loaded right." "Elena, since you're free, can you organize the linen closet?" I wasn't free. I had a career before this. Remote graphic design work I loved. But every time I opened my laptop, someone would call my name. Every time I tried to focus, they'd appear in the doorway with a new favor. Soon, my work hours dropped, then disappeared entirely. By month 3, I felt more like staff than a wife. Michael didn't defend me. He actually encouraged it. "She's just trying to help you fit in," he'd say. Or worse, "Relax, babe. If you love someone, you help their family." Help. Not serve. Not obey. Not scrub floors because his mother didn't like how the housekeeper folded towels. But the day everything shifted, truly shifted, was the first time they made me feel like I didn't belong in my own home. It was a Sunday morning brunch, their family tradition. I walked into the dining room, hair tied back, wearing casual clothes because I'd been up early cleaning the guest rooms they suddenly needed ready. Michael's sister looked me up and down and said, "Oh, I thought staff wasn't allowed to join family meals." The whole table laughed. I didn't. Because in that moment, something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not violently, but quietly. Like the sound of a lock clicking open inside a door I didn't know existed. A door I would later walk through, straight toward my revenge. At first, it was tiny tasks. Things a good daughter-in-law should do, according to them. "Elena, can you set the table? Elena, can you polish the silverware? Elena, the guest bathroom needs fresh towels." I told myself it was normal, that families had different dynamics, that maybe I just needed time. But the requests didn't stop. They multiplied. Soon, I was waking up early to prepare breakfast for everyone, cleaning spills from parties I wasn't invited to, ironing shirts that weren't my husband's, and organizing closets filled with designer clothing that cost more than my entire college tuition. And every time I tried to sit down or take a breath, someone would call my name. "Elena! Elena! Elena!" Like I was an automated system, always on, never tired, never allowed to say no. Michael didn't stop them. In fact, he joined them. One night, after a long family dinner, he tossed his linen napkin onto his empty plate and said, "Sweetheart, can you grab the dishes? Mom and I are talking." Not please, not will help, just in order. His mother smirked at me as if she enjoyed watching the shift in power, watching me transform from a bride into a servant. But the worst part wasn't the chores. It was the way they spoke to me, like I was beneath them. If I offered an opinion, they laughed. If I stood near them, they whispered. If I entered a room, they paused their conversations until I left. I wasn't family. I wasn't even a guest. I was the help. At first, the disrespect came wrapped in politeness, the kind that stings, but you convince yourself isn't real. Michael would call from the living room, "Elena, can you grab me a drink?" Then, "Elena, the guests need napkins." Then, "Elena, could you clean this up?" One request turned into another, and another, and another. I told myself it was normal, that couples help each other, that it was just temporary until we hired more staff. But I quickly learned something important. The Hawthorne family didn't want a daughter-in-law. They wanted a servant they didn't have to pay. Michael's sister, Charlotte, treated me like I was born with gloves on. She would walk into my room without knocking, drop a pile of clothes on the bed, and say, "Mom said these need steaming. You know how to do that, right?" Michael's mother, Victoria, never let me forget where she believed I belonged. Once while hosting a brunch with her friends, she snapped her fingers at me. Actually snapped her fingers. "Elena, darling, refill the teapot. Quickly, please." Her friends smiled at me the same way people smile at hotel staff. Polite, but empty. That day, for the first time, something inside me cracked. But I tried to hold myself together. I tried to be patient, understanding, supportive, until the night everything changed. It was Michael's investor dinner, the one he claimed could shape our future. I had spent the entire day preparing, cooking, decorating, setting everything perfectly. When everyone finally sat down, Michael put his arm around me and said, "Let's appreciate my wife, our full-time maid and part-time chef. She keeps the place from falling apart." The table erupted in laughter. I stood there, frozen, smiling, pretending it didn't hurt, pretending I wasn't dying inside. That was the first night I cried myself to sleep in the guest room. The one they said was more appropriate for me because my clutter didn't match the aesthetic of the master suite. I knew then that I wasn't living in a family home. I was living in a beautifully decorated prison, and they expected me to clean it. The house was massive, 8 floors of marble, gold accents, and chandeliers that could blind you if the sunlight hit them right. Guests would often marvel at the property, calling it a palace, but behind the grand facade, my life felt like a cage. I wasn't living. I was cleaning, organizing, attending to everyone else's needs, making sure their lives were perfect, while mine slowly unraveled. My family treated me like I was invisible, like I had no voice, no opinion, no right to rest. Birthday parties, holidays, even simple dinners.
I was always the one setting the table, pouring drinks, arranging everything perfectly, while they lounged and laughed, oblivious to how exhausted I was. Sometimes I'd pause and look at my reflection in a golden mirror and barely recognize the person staring back. I was tired, drained, and completely unappreciated. But as the years went by, I began noticing cracks in their perfect world. Bills being mishandled, investments mismanaged, careless decisions hidden under the glitter of wealth. And then it hit me. I wasn't just a servant in my own home. I had knowledge, authority, and the power to turn this empire upside down. I realized that the $800 million property was not just a symbol of their wealth. It was my weapon. I started quietly, observing, taking notes, remembering every corner of the property, every account, every hidden key, every document my family thought I never noticed. They believed I was too busy scrubbing floors, polishing silver, and managing their schedules. But I saw everything. Every careless mistake, every mismanaged deal. They left a trail, and I followed it like a hawk. Late nights became my strategy sessions. I pored over contracts, financial statements, and property papers. I spoke to lawyers under the guise of routine consultations, asking questions they never thought I'd understand. I learned the weaknesses, the loopholes, the cracks in their empire, and with every discovery, my resolve strengthened. The turning point came when I realized how dependent the family was on my knowledge of the property. They had built their fortune on appearances, on illusion, not on real understanding. I had both, the knowledge and the quiet patience to act. That night, I made a decision that would shock them all. I was going to reclaim my life on my terms. Not through confrontation, not through anger, but through the power they had always ignored in me. By the morning, I had the first piece of the plan in motion, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years: freedom. Weeks passed, and I moved like a ghost in my own home. I made calls under different names, set up meetings with investors, and reviewed offers while pretending to tidy rooms or arrange flowers. My family never suspected a thing. They still saw me as invisible, as the girl who polished their silver and kept their schedules. One morning, I walked into the boardroom carrying a stack of documents, a calm smile on my face. "I've finalized the sale," I said softly, letting the words hang in the air. Eyes widened, jaws dropped. They stared at me as if I had spoken another language. The property they treated me like a servant in, their $800 million estate, was now under contract to new owners. Every corner of the mansion, every acre of land, every asset carefully cataloged and sold. And I wasn't done. I had timed everything perfectly, ensuring no one could undo it or stop the process. My phone buzzed with messages from buyers, lawyers, and reporters, all congratulating me. Meanwhile, my family scrambled, trying to understand what had just happened. The realization hit them slowly but brutally. The girl they ignored, the girl they belittled, had quietly dismantled the empire they assumed they controlled. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I just smiled, letting the quiet power of my actions speak for itself. For the first time, I was truly free. By the time they realized what had happened, it was too late. Panic set in. My parents were pacing, my siblings whispering behind closed doors, all trying to figure out how the girl they treated like a maid had pulled this off. I walked into the living room that afternoon carrying nothing but my laptop and a small bag. "Everything's settled," I said casually, as if selling an $800 million property was just another Tuesday errand. My mother's hand froze in midair. My father's face went pale, and my siblings' mouths opened and closed like fish out of water. No words could fix the shock. For years, I had been ignored, dismissed, and made to feel small in my own home. Every insult, every late-night cleaning session, every forgotten birthday became fuel for this moment. And now the empire they thought they controlled was gone. Not stolen, not ruined, but handed over to new owners while I walked away with the satisfaction of justice served quietly, efficiently, perfectly. I didn't scream, I didn't throw a tantrum, I didn't even look back as I left the estate for the last time. I had done what they never thought I could. I took control, I took power, and most importantly, I took back my dignity. Outside, the air felt different, lighter, freer. For the first time in my life, I wasn't living under anyone's shadow. I had turned the tables, and it felt like victory. Every step I took away from that mansion reminded me of something I'd always known. Respect isn't demanded, it's earned. And this time, I had earned it on my own terms. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more jaw-dropping revenge stories, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that will leave you speechless.